When I was the director of the Division of Unemployment Assistance for the state of Massachusetts, I went in knowing one thing, and then I came out shocked by something else. What I knew going in was that Massachusetts had the highest costs in the nation for UI. We had the most generous benefits, they lasted longer than anyone else, and they were the easiest to qualify for. You put all that together, and it's a very generous benefit package for people who lose their jobs. What goes with that is a very high tax burden on businesses. So I knew that going in. But what shocked me was the extent to which unemployment insurance claimants broke into two groups. Those people who had lost their job once every 10 years, collect unemployment, and go off it. But the existence of another group, what I call the frequent flyers, stunned me. Thousands of people in Massachusetts collect unemployment insurance year after year after year after year. People who are employed in seasonal industries, people who are employed in construction trades, anybody who has an uneven work pattern, many of them have developed an approach to their work life that includes baking in a period of unemployment insurance every year. It's very important to understand that the amount of money that businesses get charged in unemployment insurance taxes is entirely based on how much we give out in terms of benefits. So any time that the unemployment insurance rates are changed, but nothing is done to change the costs, the benefits that go out, you haven't really changed anything. Think of it this way. There's two ways you can affect your monthly credit card payment. You can just decide to only pay $50 a month instead of $100, but you haven't changed your spending. In the long run, you're going to have to still pay everything you put on your credit card. It's the same with unemployment insurance taxes. The rates are completely a result of what you're doing on the benefit side. And until and unless the legislature makes changes to the benefits, you're still going to have extremely high unemployment insurance taxes in Massachusetts. Massachusetts has double the burden on business for unemployment insurance taxes than the national average. And that's a drag on the economy. It's a tax on jobs, and it's hurting our economy. I'll break the changes into two categories. The first is revenue neutral, things that don't affect the benefit part of the equation at all. And the main thing I would do is to raise the maximum that a company can be charged for an employee for unemployment insurance taxes. The way it works now, there are certain businesses who lay their people off frequently and regularly, and they are paying the maximum UI tax because they're it's called an experience-rated system. So they're paying the maximum tax. The problem is the maximum tax is $1,542 a year per employee. So what happens is I pay $1,542 a year in taxes on an employee, but I get back, or the employee gets back, $5,000 or $10,000 or $15,000 in benefits. And so basically what happens is the UI system becomes a subsidy for certain businesses that make use of unemployment on a frequent basis, and it's paid for by businesses who don't abuse the unemployment insurance system. So the first thing I'd do is I would raise the maximum amount that the heavy UI user companies can pay in taxes so that there's less of a subsidy between the low UI using companies and the high using companies. The second set of changes I'd make, and it's more difficult to make in a down economy, but I do think you have to rethink the level of the benefits in Massachusetts. We have one of the highest maximum unemployment benefit checks in the nation. We have one of the longest lasting benefits and some of the easiest to qualify for. And it's great to be generous, but you have to recognize that that comes at a cost on business. And ultimately what that does is it drives jobs out of Massachusetts. We're in competition for jobs not only with North Carolina and New Hampshire, we're also in competition for jobs with India and China. And the more you place a burden on doing business here in Massachusetts, the more you're going to drive companies elsewhere. Let me tell you the story of somebody called Mrs. Q. She runs a jewelry store down in Nantucket. And every summer, for 5 or 6 months, she runs her jewelry shop, makes $60,000 or $80,000 or $100,000 a year. And then she lays herself off and heads down to Florida. And as commissioner of the Division of Unemployment Assistance, I used to have to send her checks down to Delray Beach all winter. Net effect of this was that she paid about $1,500 a year in unemployment insurance taxes and collected $15,000 a year in benefits. And she did this year after year after year. This is based on a true story. The facts have been changed to so that she's not personally identifiable, but this is an actual case study that I had my people, I said, can we stop paying this woman? She's obviously scamming the system. And basically the answer is, unless you can prove that she's not looking for work in Florida, and I challenge you to try to prove that someone isn't looking for work, unless you can prove that she's not looking for work down in Florida, what she's doing is legal. And so what ends up happening is that people and companies that use unemployment insurance a lot, like this woman who would lay herself off, end up getting a subsidy from other businesses because the taxes are $1,500 a year maximum that you pay in. You can take up to $17,000, $18,000 a year out. One of the things I'm proudest of is that in 2008, I co-wrote a pioneer study on unemployment insurance with Steve Poftak. And one of the things we pointed out was that there was a design flaw in the federal UI program that allowed people who had never lived in Massachusetts or worked in Massachusetts to come to Massachusetts to collect the highest in the nation benefits. So someone who worked in New Mexico and Arizona, for example, could actually fly to Massachusetts, file for unemployment insurance here, and we would send him or her the benefits much higher than they would have gotten from their home states. We'd get reimbursed from those home states, but they would come here in order to get higher benefits. Well, after the Pioneer study came out, and we were covered in a lot of newspapers throughout the state and elsewhere, the federal government finally came around and changed that law so that that's no longer taking place. So Pioneer can and does have significant influence in these areas. They're a great voice on Beacon Hill for positive change.